1.7 billion naira, while Egbe, the largest power plant in Nigeria, submitted an invoice of 10 billion naira but got only 5 billion naira. Ureli Transcorp submitted an invoice of 7 billion naira in January but got paid a total of 4 billion naira. And Sapele Power Steam had an invoice of 945 million naira but got paid 478 million naira. Geregu also got half the rate of 4 billion naira after submitting an invoice of 8 billion naira. Well, joining me, and also the federal government has said it regrets that the petroleum refineries are not working, while ruling out the possibility of introducing subsidies on automotive gas oil, also known as diesel. It stated that it could not afford the payment of subsidies on diesel. The Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, made this known in Abuja on Tuesday. The House of Representatives Committee on Downstream had summoned stakeholders in the oil and gas sector to an investigative hearing over the scarcity and rising prices of premium motor spirit, petrol, diesel and liquefied petroleum gas, cooking gas in the country. Those grilled by the lawmakers were Kyari, who is the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, and Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, Farouk Ahmed, among others. In his presentation, the CEO of the NMDPRA suggested 3 measures to be taken to address the challenges with the supply and distribution chain. He said, and I quote, "The required amount of forex for importation of the petroleum products should be made available to the genuine importers at CBN official rate." Ahmed also said the government should encourage the establishment of more local refineries and LPG processing facilities to meet domestic demands, adding that an increase in the LPG supply from major domestic producers, including NLNG, BRT processing, CNL, LPG, FSO, would resolve some of the issues. The regulator of the insurance industry, the National Insurance Commission, NICOM, has cancelled the certificates of registration of Niger Insurance PLC and Standard Alliance Insurance PLC. This was disclosed in a statement issued by the head, Corporate Communications and Market Development, Razak Salami, for the Commissioner for Insurance, NICOM, titled Notice of Cancellation of the Certificates of Registration of Niger Insurance PLC and Standard Alliance Insurance PLC. It will be recalled that in June 2021, the Nigerian Insurance Association suspended Industrial and General Insurance Company Limited, Niger Insurance and Standard Alliance Insurance. The Governing Council of the Nigerian Insurance Association approved the expulsion of the companies from its membership for failing to meet their obligations to policyholders, thus negating the basic principles of insurance, according to the NIA. End of quote. A former president, Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, Dr. Sam Nzikwe, said inflation in the country was making it difficult for some insurance companies to meet up with their claims obligations. According to him, the operating environment is challenging and only the strong ones that could work very hard could stand. The Security and Exchange Commission, SEC, has stated that the Commission is working to ensure it reduces the level of unclaimed dividends to 0% in the Nigerian financial market. This was disclosed by Alhaji Lamido Yuguda, the Director General, in an interactive session with the press on Tuesday in Lagos. As of December 31, 2021, unclaimed dividends have increased to 180 billion naira, according to Yuguda. Although 180 billion naira in unclaimed dividends is a sizable sum, according to Yuguda, it represents only 5% of the total amount of dividends announced in the entire capital market. The SEC boss had earlier stated that unclaimed dividends in the Nigerian capital markets rose to 170 billion naira as of December 2022. He added that the figure rose from 158.44 billion naira in total unclaimed dividends as of December 2019. Well, those were the top trending stories at the moment, and for further analysis of these stories, I am joined by Mr. Sumbo Badejoko, a public affairs analyst. Hello, Sumbo. Thanks for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, Nikki.
All right, looking at the stories, let's start with the very first one that talked about payments dropping by 50%. That's what discos are paying to the electricity generation companies. How do you even react to that, start with?
I'm not surprised at that because if you look at the activities of the GENCOs of late, not really been generating enough to transmit and distribute to the consumers. And we know that the discos too, they are yet to meet up with the mass metering directive given to them by the government. More than half of their customers are yet to be metered, meaning that a good number of us are on postpaid billing system, which means till they pay, they have to use the electricity before they are paid. And when they are not getting the electricity supply, they have also been refusing to pay. I could remember in my area, I got a bill for less than 1,000 naira, and that is the lowest in quite a while, which because I'm yet to get the prepaid meter myself. So that tells you that there is a reduction in the amount that people are actually paying the discos. And once the discos will only pay the GenCo from what they are able to generate. And of course, don't forget.
Let me come in here. What about the invoice? Let me come in here. What about the invoice? If I give you an invoice, that means I must have provided service up to that amount. Don't you think so?
Yes. The invoice will be, they have to pay the amount on the invoice based on their own revenue base. And if they are not generating enough, they would, of course, the report is only giving us one side. It's not giving us the reasons why the discos have paid just half of the total amount. So, and if I want to use my own knowledge of the reason why they would have paid that half is because they do not have enough money to actually defray those charges. So that is why it is like that. But if you go into the discos book, what you will find there is that they have not generated enough revenue to be able to meet up with that payment. And why they have not generated is what I highlighted earlier. The consumer, those are you and I consuming the thing at the base. We are not getting service, value added for, we're not getting the quality service for the amount we are paying. So a good number of us are discouraged. And those who are on prepaid, of course, until they consume the units, they don't have any reason to buy any electricity units prepaid. So those are the reasons why their revenue has dropped because electricity supply has been very poor in the last couple of months.
Well, that's us holding brief for them. But then let's look at this drop in payment. What implication will it have on the generation companies?
Well, the generation companies, they belong to the government. The government will have to, if they are in need of money to buy equipment and all that, the government can give them bailouts pending the time that the discos will be able to pay their balance. But I don't see it having much implication like that. It's just that these are results of the system of electricity that we are operating. Having just one single grid for a country of 200 million population is absurd and really need to be worked on.
All right, I guess that's you already talking about some of the solutions that can be maybe taking heed to in the sector. Is that correct?
Yes, because you can't have one single grid supplying the entire population. We need to federalize the grid. Having a national grid is supposed to serve as a backup to the federalized grid system.
Okay, you're talking about you're talking about federalized grid system, but then recently we heard talks that the federal government plans to decentralize this power generation.
Yes, it's subject to a legislative procedure, and from what I know, the current proposed amendment to the Constitution has actually removed electricity generation from the exclusive list and is now on the concurrent list. The moment that passes and the president has sent onto it, then the component unit, that is the state government, can now go and embark on their own independent power project, meaning that they can operate independent of the grid, and that will give us more options as consumers. We'll go for whichever one that will suit our interest and whichever one that would give us service for their value for the money that we are paying.
All right, so let's move on to some other stories that we talked about earlier today. We looked at a story from the oil refineries, yes, where we had Mele Kyari saying that the federal government regrets that refineries are not working. I mean, how would you react to that coming from Mele Kyari?
Well, Mele Kyari is one person that, if I'm the president of this country, would have lost his job. has conscience at all, and he's not ashamed to say that kind of thing, that the refinery, we have 4 refineries. I could remember vividly that in the inception of this administration, the president himself said, while accusing the past administration that they inherited 4 refineries and they could not maintain it, that if they are not adding any to it, they should be able to maintain the ones they inherited. Now, this administration 7 years on is guilty of the same thing. You also inherited 4 refineries. You've not added a single one. You have refused to grant enough licenses and given enough incentives to private sectors who have the capacity to set up this one. Even Dangote, that is the only one close to giving us a private refinery or petrochemical complex, is yet to commence operation. And because the government is so lazy, they always give us excuses of lack of fund and the rest of them. They've relied so much on the Dangote refinery, and things are slowing down. Dangote is supposed to start operation according to the earlier date given by 1st of July. But from information I had concerning the state of that refinery, it is still at about 85% completion, which means we may not be having Dangote refinery this year. And last year, the federal government voted some money for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refineries. It did not give the National Assembly Committee update on the state of the Port Harcourt refinery. If we don't stop importing the product, for now, we are importing every single petroleum product in this country, and yes, we are the 6th or the 7th largest producer of crude oil in Nigeria. Even the LPG that we don't used to import before, because of the removal of subsidy on kerosene, people's attention has been diverted to the LPG as the means of cooking, and the pressure has now been on the NNLG to not meet up with the local supply. So we have to be importing the LPG as well. So we are importing every single petroleum product into the country now.
All right, I totally understand where you're coming from. But then again, Farouk Ahmed was actually preferring solutions to some of the issues bedeviling this sector. And then he said something about Forex should be made available to genuine importers. And one would ask, isn't that a given? Why do we have to talk about this again?
That is why I said he should be ashamed of himself.
This is actually Farouk Ahmed, another person.
It was the NNPC that refused to allow marketers to import the refined product by themselves. They are the sole importer and distributing it to the major marketers who have tank farms